everybody, welcome back. So we'll do lab 1 today, and if you want to go check out Canvas while we wait a few more minutes. Okay, so as some of you are accessing Canvas, I posted lab 1. We are going to be doing very simple program using print function in Python today. So if you haven't gotten your Python installed, make sure you take a look at the instruction and install Python on your computer. We'll officially start in a minute. I just want to make sure that everybody is able to access Zoom right now. I also posted the video from our last session. We talked a little bit about introductory to Python, course policy and procedures. So if you missed some part of last week, you can also, on Tuesday, then you can go in and take a look at that. Okay. The YouTube one is the caption one, and then the regular Zoom is not caption. And with the regular Zoom video, you need a password, and the password is on the page in Canvas. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I think some people might be joining us in a few minutes. So this week, we talked a little bit about how to install Python. Today, we are going to write a few programs using print function and Python. So to start the lab, I'm going to go into screen share. And you can find lab 1 located in Canvas. So as soon as you log on to Canvas, you would see the module, and we would go to unit 1 module, and the lab is at the bottom here. The due date for this is the 28th, so you don't necessarily have to finish it today. I understand that some of you are trying to still square some stuff away as far as getting into the class and so forth. So in the case that you do add to the course late, I am fine with you turning it in later. But you can download this document. That's what we're going to be using for instructions. So go ahead and click that. And then you will find the document looking like this. Okay, let me zoom in. So what I did was I rewrote the instruction in detail for Python installation. So in case if you didn't get to do that last time, you can. As far as the assignment, we did the installation during our assignment. So part A is for Windows 10. And then part B is for Mac OS. And then part C is for Linux. So you will need to determine which operating system you're using, and then you would do the appropriate installation. So once you have the installation, if you already did that on Tuesday, you just proceed to part D. Okay? And in part D, I'm mainly gonna just walk you through the programming concept versus going back to the installation, which we talked about on Tuesday. So in part D, what we'll be doing is we are going to create the Python program, but first we're gonna run that in shell. Very similar to what we've done on Tuesday. So before we start getting into the programming side in idle, I want to touch back on syntax. So by definition, syntax is a set of rules which defines how a Python program is written, or a program how it should be written. So think of it like grammar in English, right? You would have the appropriate subject with the verb when you write out the sentence. So for example, you would say, I am a student. You don't say student am, or student I am, right? You would have I am a student. So the appropriate way is to make sure that we follow the rules so that way it doesn't generate error. So syntax, again, is just a set of rules that define how a program is written. And we're mainly going to use the print function. Basically, that's going to display or print out some sort of text on screen. And we would use string within print. So an example of the print function is like this. We saw this on Tuesday. We would have print, and we would have the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, we would use parameter. And in this case, we're using a string. So a string is text or a group of sequential characters. It can be symbol, it can be letters, and it can be numbers, right? And the way the computer see this is it's going to be ASCII that's going to be utilized as string here as characters, okay? Now inside the parentheses would be your parameter, okay? And in that will be information that you would put in so that way it would display that. So it would complete that task, is to print it onto your console. Now, as far as string, we want to use the quotation mark as the parameter inside the parentheses. So in part D, your to-do list is located right below the example. You are to create a program that displays your name, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open up idle, and you can use IDE of your choice. And the first thing that's open in idle, this is the shell, okay? And it will say shell at the top right here and your Python version, okay? Now, there are tutorial videos on how to configure the shell and how to go through, and there's also a debug option here, right? So shell is very simple in that it's going to read a line and it's going to output a line, Okay, so earlier we saw that on Tuesday we actually did print, right? And right now I'm going to complete the task. My name is Casey Nguyen. Make sure you put the string inside the quotation marks and close that out with the parentheses. So we want to have an open and a closed parentheses. And so once you press enter, shell simply just give you the output. So print is a command that display whatever that's inside the parameter, right? Whatever that is used as parameter, and in this case we're using a string. So for the first task under part D, what you are to do is you are to create, or you are to write out in shell your name. And so let's say if I have, my name is Bob, then it will be Bob, right? So the computer, the way it handles this is it's going to take that command and it's going to interpret that, right? This is, we're using the interpreter, and it's going to display whatever that's you use as parameter. So now once you have that, you don't need to click run, you just press enter and it should output. Okay. Now let's say that you wanted to create a file, right? So we want to open up our text editor from idle. You can go File, New File, as instructed in step 5. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to reiterate that process to print our name, but we are to create a file and we're going to call it name.py. So what I did was I simply do step number 5 here, where I would choose File, New File, and that opens up the text editor. And remember, we write our code in the text editor, okay? So in this right now, we can simply say that print, right? We can say our full name, Casey Nguyen. You can type in your full name and make sure it's inside the quotation mark and the parentheses. Now, the difference between the shell and when you're creating a program using text editors, when I press enter in text editor, it just drops it to the next line. It doesn't run that yet, right? So we need to make sure that we save it first and then run. If you click run, it's going to force you to save. So we can say File, Save As, and you can drop it onto your desktop if you want, or if you have a folder that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder for myself here. And I'm going to call this folder Python program, right? I'm just going to open the folder. I'm using Windows, so. And here we're going to go ahead and say name.py. So for Python program, when you create a Python program after you write it, when you save it, it's always going to use that file extension .py. Click save. Okay. Now, once we have saved our program, we're going to go ahead and click File, and Run, and Run Module, or press F5. So automatically it's going to pop up the shell because it's going to use the shell and idle as the output, right? That's going to be the console output. So I have my code here and I have my output here. So you can take the screen capture if you want to capture both. Sure, that's fine. Okay. So what it's telling you in part D is first, you're going to test it in shell with your name using print function. Second, you are to make a new file, and then in that new file, you are to write the same command print and then implement the parameter with your name in the parentheses, inside the parentheses with the quotation mark. Okay, like so. And then you're going to go ahead and save that file as name.py to the location where you can find. And then you're going to click run. And I need for you to take a screen capture. Now on Windows, you're going to do Alt print screen. Alt is at the bottom, or you can simply hit print screen. Print screen is at the top. Okay. Now on Apple and Linux, Linux is similar to Windows, but on Apple it's slightly different. So in the last assignment, I put in the link for you to look at for the support information on Apple, how to do print screen. So when you turn in your document, you will turn in a document that contains your print screen. So here is my code, right? Here is my output. What I can do is I can put it together. And if you wanted to use snip, right, in Windows, you can just snip that part of the screen and paste it into a document like Word. Okay, so I just need the print screen for that. Any question as far as part D of our lab? Okay. All right. So if you have questions, please unmute and ask. So after you complete D and take a screen capture and paste it onto a document. Now, some students, they just save that, the screen capture as a picture file. They upload a bunch of files. Sure, that's okay too. But I rather that you put it on one document so that way you don't have to upload so many times. Okay, because as we get to the longer lab, you might have 20 screen capture, and I don't want you to have to upload 20 times, but you can do that if you wish. It's better just if you just paste it into a document and save that document so you always have it, and then upload that document. Okay, I'm going to do part E next. So in part E, we are again using the print function, and now we're going to start using comment. So at the top, I put the note that print function is also useful in debugging, like finding issues and mistakes. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say that you wanted for it to display, to print out certain results so you can check to make sure that there's the appropriate sum, or if it's displaying the proper character if you're trying to output. So let's say that down the line we create a program to search for certain character or certain name, right? And what we can do is we can use the print function to show our search result, right? To display our search result. If it's wrong, then we need to go back and take a look at the structure of our program, the content of our program, and see how we can correct that. Okay? So the example that I'm showing here is that we are to print out the string, I am 25 years old. And next to it is what we see using a hashtag. This is a comment. So a way that we use comment is to make notes throughout our program to show, what that section of the program is about. And you don't have to comment every line. Most of the time, programmer would have that comment at the beginning, and they would comment like what that section of the code is meant to do. So we use comment as a helpful way to really remind ourselves about the functionality of our program. Okay, or you can also use comment to tell other programmer who's contributing to your program right, what they need to look out for. So simply it's used for notation. And what happens is the interpreter in Python it ignores that part. So when it sees the hashtag, it's going to ignore everything else after that. Okay? And some of you, if you use comment in C++ or Java before, it uses different symbols. So every language have specific rules or syntax, right, on the utilization of symbols and characters and things like that for specific things, for a specific purpose. So the example of a comment here is display my age, or you can just simply say, you know, my age, right? Now, what I want you to do for the next task is, again, you are to use the text editor in your IDE or idle. And you're going to make a program and you're going to print out your age. And if you don't want to disclose your real age, that's fine. Just put an age, right? You can say, I am blank years old, or, you know, my age is. And I want you to use the comment next to it or above it to tell me what that line is intended to do. Okay? So I'm going to go back over here. Go back to my shell. I'm going to go ahead and click File, New File. And so here is my new file. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and say print I am 43 years old. And with that, you can tab if you want to give it a little bit of space. We can say that we want to comment display my age or show my age, right? And when we're done, we're going to go ahead and click File, Save As. And again, I'm going to go back to my Python program folders, and I'm going to name this age.py. After I save my program, and my program consists of my print with the string here and my comment, I'm going to go ahead and click Run. And it should show this. So we can screenshot this now, right? And then paste it onto the document. So as you can see, when we do this, right, we can go back to the program and edit once you save it. So let's say that I don't want the comment to be here, okay? I want the comment to be on top of this. So what I can do is I can cut this, and I can move this down a little bit, and I can paste that here. It doesn't matter where you place it, the interpreter will still ignore it. It's not going to see it as a code, a line of code. It's just going to say, oh, that's a comment. I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to execute that next line. Okay. So after when you change your content of your program, make sure that we save and then we run, because if you don't, it's just going to go back to the old file. And you notice that on the output, display my age is not there, right? So when you run this, it's not showing that comment. So you can have, you know, a longer line of the comment. It's just going to totally ignore that. It's only going to execute what's considered as code. Okay, so to use comment in Python, we would use the hashtag. Now, because Python use line by line, and it interpret line by line. So if I have multiple line, let's say I wanted to add another comment here, I can say Python program showing age, right? Then I would have to add another hashtag here. Okay, or I can say another line, right? CIS30A lab 1, you know, part E, right? So once I edit it, I'm just going to go ahead and click save, and then I can press F5 on my keyboard, and it's still going to run. It's just going to ignore those 3 lines as comments. Any question on how to use comment? So whether you're in computer science, oh, did someone have a question?
Oh,
No?
yeah,
Y-
Dr. Wynn.
Yes, Cynthia.
I had a question, but I think you answered it. It's just I was wondering. I was actually wondering if it was possible to do 2 lines of code and will the program run? But when I tried it, it didn't work.
Okay, so 2 line of code or 2 line of comment? 2 line of code, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that I have this saved already. I open it again and I'm trying to add another line,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you in the editor part of it, and then just say that I want to say my age is 43, which is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, I had an error there. All right, and then I can print another one, and I can say um, I will be 44 in October. Okay,
Mhm.
so we're gonna go ahead and click save, and then we're gonna go ahead and press F5. And yeah, it would show all 3 lines. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna run this line first, show that line. Next, it's gonna run the next line, show it, and then next is gonna run the next line. So if you run into the error, it possibly that you just need to check to make sure that you type it correctly. Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, usually that's just a syntax error. It's just that maybe you're missing the back parentheses, right? I see that that's common in beginner for programming in any language. So make sure that you have the open and end parentheses, you have the quotation mark, and then, and then make sure we type out print correctly, because if you miss the T, it won't work, or if you misspell it, it won't work. But
Okay.
yes, you can do multiple lines like that. Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other question?
Or Dr. Wynn, I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, that's why I'm here. Question?
I just when I tried it, when I it doesn't come up for some reason. I run it and it doesn't come up on my shell. Multiple print, because I don't know if there's a limit of how many lines of code we can run
Oh
or
no, there's
no.
not. Okay,
I think
so
I think what she's doing she's not doing it on a new file.
yes.
She's running it through shell.
So this, Cynthia, this is what you need to do. Thank you, Chris, for pointing that out. So
Hmm.
go ahead and click File and to open a new file,
Hmm.
right? So let's say that I'm gonna copy this real quick, right?
Right.
And then go back to your shell, and the shell, it will tell you that it's shell on the top, and then go click File, New File. So your editor would say Untitled at the top, okay?
Oh, okay. I do have my editor. It's just maybe it's because I opened up an older file.
Yeah, and you have to save it every time you edit it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you add more code to it and you don't save it, it just goes to the old file before you edit it. Yeah, because the computer, it's just gonna go to that safe location. It's gonna read that file, right? So
Yeah.
you have to, every time that you edit your code, you have to click File, Save, or Control S. But yeah, so you just simply click File, Save. Now, if I edit my code and I don't want to override the old one, I can save it as a new name and then run that new file, right? So In some cases, people have different version of their program, like version 1.1 and 1.2. They save it as two different names. But in our case, we just update our file. Just make sure that every time that you add a new line or change anything, make sure you click save, Control S.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we got our comment set up, right? You can comment next to it by hitting tab and try to use tab instead of space, 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 right? You can comment at the top. Usually when I teach my programming class, I would tell the students to put, you know, their program information at the top, right? So we can say that this program is to display my age, right? Python program showing age, kind of like a description of the program. So that way, when you open it, you know, a year from now, you're like, oh, that's the program that I did for this. Or sometimes the assignment number would help the student kind of track which program, because, you know, you're going to be doing all different type of programs. Or in throughout the code, if you want to comment, right, you can also comment there. And then you can say, you know, when I will be older, right? So comment, the interpreter just simply ignore it. And we'll use a hashtag before our comment, okay? Once you have, so when I edit this, right, I want to go ahead and click File and Save. So make sure that it has all the new updated information, and then I can run it again. Next part, let's talk about part F if you don't have any question about E. So during the cyber camp this summer, I basically walked the younger students through some of this. So I took some of the content from that and I edited it and I use it for your class, because I found that print is a really good function to start with, kind of just looking at how we can display something. So the computer, basically it takes input, right? And then we would instruct it to output using something like print. Okay, and then it would also store. So that's why you have to save your program somewhere, so that way, you know, so we would have storage. So next week we're going to go over variable, where we allocate a certain location in the memory where it's going to store some kind of information. So in part F, we are to create a program that display the family member names, right? And we would use the print and string to display the names. And we would include the comment for each of the person role. Like, you know, my brother's name is Benjamin, then I would comment brother, right? And then you would go ahead and I want you to do this in editor, not shell, because in the shell it's very limited. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna do this with you. We're gonna go ahead and open up our shell, and then we're gonna go ahead and put File, New File, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start commenting. I'm gonna open and expand it so you can see. So I open a new document from shell, and we're gonna say that this Python program contains family name. Okay. Then we're gonna go ahead and do print, and you can say my family members are. And if you want that extra space, right, you can, or, you know, so we're not using the separator yet, so we're just gonna go ahead and do this all together, right? So I'm gonna start listing my mother's name, okay? Actually, let's do it like this. Okay, and we're gonna do print again. And I'm going to list my mother's name first. And we're going to go ahead and comment this. We're going to tap it out. I'm going to put mother. Print. Brother. Print. Right? And you can add more names to this, right? So let's say, and I will add Joe, and he is my husband, for family names. Okay? So what we have is we are going to have these people as part of our family, and we comment out the role. Okay? So I just have 3 for now for you to see. And then we're going to go ahead and click File, Save As. And I'm going to point back to my folder, and we're going to name this family.py. Now, let's say that you wanted to put the comma inside the string like this. You can, right? Just to kind of separate and know and show that, yeah, there's the next person. So we're going to go ahead and click File and Save. Okay. So after I edit or I create the file and save, I can click File and can click Run. Okay. Now this one, of course, we know that it ignores the comment, right? It runs the first line, print my family members are, right? And then the second line, it gives you my mother's name. And then the next line, it gives you my brother's name. And then the next line, it gives you my husband's name. Sorry about my dog. Okay, so as you can see, and you can go more than 3, right? You can just keep printing. And I will show you how you can use the separator in a little bit. Okay. Any question regarding the family members program?
I had a question, not on the program itself, but can you comment out like big pieces of code like you do in C++?
Like a block?
Mm-hmm.
No, because it's line by line. So if I want to comment out like this, I have to put like this to put the hashtag in front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, interpreter reads line by line, so you have to do it each line, unfortunately. I did kind of dive into it and kind of look at like what's the possibility of Python doing block. Yeah, so Java, C++, you know, there is way that you can do that, but because Python uses interpreter uses versus compiler, it compiled the whole program before it execute. So it kind of sees the spot as far as the block. So, but Python, it reads as it goes through each line. So you have to comment out each line. So it's a little bit tedious.
Okay, thank you. I was curious.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I did some research on it a little back, but okay. Any other questions? All right. So once you did the family member's name for part F, right, you are going to proceed to part G. Our lab is very short this week. And you can practice as much as you want, right? After you create one, you can create another one. Next week when we get into more, you know, variable, and then, you know, we will have a little bit more fun. And we'll do input. So in part G, it talks about separator, and the way that we can use this is we can use it to separate strings, right, in our exercise. And in Python, we would use a comma to separate one string to another, okay? And what it will do is it would treat it as separate entity. So earlier you saw my program, I had it print out 3 times. Well, what we can do is we can have all of those strings separated by comma. So I'm going to do an example for you to really tell you what that means. So earlier you saw that I have print 3 lines, right? Because I wanted to drop it into 3 different lines. But I can also do it like this. You know, my family members are, right? And then what we can do is we can separate it inside the parameter using the comma, and then we would have another one, another string, and I can start putting in the name, separate the first name that I put, and then like that. Okay, it's still gonna output it together. Watch. Save as. So I'm gonna save it real quick so you can see family1.py. So when I run this, right? Let me put it side by side so you can see better. Okay. So when I run this, you notice that it ignores that separator comma here. It just put the name. So it's treating it as each of these names are individual string. And when we print it and we can separate, you know, the content of our parameter. So what it's saying is that in our parameter, we have 1 string, which is my family members are. And then another string is this name here, Trang. And then another string is Benjamin, and then another string is Joe. Now, if you wanted to add the little comma to show the little comma, then you have to put it inside the quotation mark for it to show it as a part of that string. Okay, so I'm gonna change that for you real quick, and so you can see, right? And then we're gonna click run. And see, now that little comma, because it's inside the quotation mark, it shows up to separate the name. Okay. So the way we use separator here is that we would separate multiple strings inside the parameter by adding that comma. And the comma outside of the quotation mark is a separator. The comma inside the quotation mark is just going to be part of that string. It's going to put that into the parameter, and then it's going to display based on the command. Okay, so we see the difference there. Okay, any question with this? So there, you can see there are a few ways to really approach programming, right? The first way we saw that we have it print multiple times to show the name in each of the line, right? And then we can also have it print on one line, and we can separate each of the name using the separator. And then we can also add the little comma inside the quotation to treat it as part of the string. So that way it makes a little bit more sense to the person that's reading the output, right? Because this is better, the second time it's better than not using the comma inside the string itself. Okay. All right, so when you program, I want you to think about, will this make sense to the user, right? Is this efficient, and is it going to make sense to the user who's using this program? And that's important to think about, because that really tells us on how we're going to be able to design it or create it. Okay, because if it start looking, you know, like it's difficult to use, is a lot of time it doesn't make sense to the user. So the learning curve for that is going to be challenging. All right, so for the next part, you see my little example here. I have print my favorite food is, and then the movie and a place, okay? And here what I have is I have the separator, right, as the comma here, and it separate these strings, okay? And I should have this, oops, I should have the space there actually. All right, so for part G, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing as the example. Any question? Okay, so I want you to use the print function to, and string and separator to display your favorite food, a movie, you don't have to have multiple movies, and place. It should be in. Okay, or if you just want to list all the food, that's fine. But what we want to do is the whole purpose of this is to utilize the separator to separate out the strings. And then also you can comment. So I will do that with you. We're just gonna make a new file. Okay. And I'm just gonna comment first. Python program about favorites. Right? So we're gonna do print my favorite things, comma. So that's the first string. We have the first separator, which is the comma there. And then we would say food is, I actually like tacos the most, comma, second separator for the second string, movie is Home Alone. And then lastly, place is beach. Okay. Now, if we wanted to make sure that it makes sense to the user, make sure that we include the comma inside the string so that way it's separated. So it looks better, it looks cleaner, it looks like it's actually a separate set of words, right? So I use the separator to separate out each entity, each string, and then inside it, I include the comma as part of the string so that way it looks cleaner in the text that's displayed for the user, okay? So once you have that, and you can have the period at the last one right here too, that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and click File, Save As. And I'm gonna call this favorites.py. And then I simply press F5. And it tells me my favorite food is tacos, movie is Home Alone, and place is beach. Okay, any question? Pretty simple. And now, but you know, if you wanted to drop it to do multiple print, sure, that's okay. But the whole purpose of this whole entire exercise is to use the separator in the parameter. And those separators, that's the commons right here. Okay. Any question? If I'm going too fast, if you need to go back to something, let me know. You know, that's not a problem. We should have plenty of time to. Okay, so that's the task for part G. Now in H, we are using print with the escape characters. Okay. And escape characters is often special character. And in our case right now, we're looking at the backslash, which is a special character. So the apostrophe is a special character, right? So you would use it to indicate, because inside the string, sometimes special characters might not be displayed, right? Like for example, if you're working on displaying like, you know, copyright symbol or, you know, different form of symbol, sometimes it's good to use specific a escape character to really display special character. And also we can use it to represent white space, right? Like a space that we tab in, right? So let's say that you're designing an app and on it you want it to, for the next line to be indented in, right, from the, you know, compared to the border, then we would use a special character like /t for tab. So the escape character, we can use that for tab. We can also use /n for a new line, or /r for carriage return. So the example that you see here is that I put print, I am learning Python. And it explains here that the reason why we use the slash right here is because there's an apostrophe there. And it's a special character, so that way we want it to be properly displayed. And we wanted to separate the, I like coding with it is fun. So what this /n will do is it's gonna drop it is fun in the next line. Okay, so it's gonna separate those two from each other and it's gonna drop that into the next line. Okay, so here in this, what we're gonna do is we are going to create a list of our friends, but we are gonna use the escape character, especially mainly the /n for the new line. So we want to display one name per line. So for this task, simply we are to go ahead and open a new file. And what we're going to do is we are to, let's comment this. A list of our friends using escape characters. Okay. Now earlier, going back to this, we can do it like that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and click print, put print. We're gonna do my friends are, right? Now, if you take a look at the example, the way the second piece is here, right? We can build it all into one string, but we can use the escape character to handle the lines. Okay, so let me see which one. Okay, so we can say /n, right? And we can put our friend's name. Actually, this has to be like this. So we wanted to use /n and say Jeff, Dave, John. I'm gonna go ahead and call this file, oops. Let me get to the folder, friends.py. So what I did here was I put the /n here to separate Christine from my friends R, and /n here to make it a new line. So Jeff is going to get dropped to the new line, and Dave is going to get dropped to the new line, and John is going to get dropped to the new line. So when I run this, right, you can see that as soon as it sees that /n, it's going to say, oh, new line. So after my friends are, it's going to put Christine into the new line. And then after Christine, it's going to put Jeff into a new line, and then Dave into a new line, and John into a new line. And this is the output. Okay. So we utilize this a lot. Let's say that you would have a section of your program to describe a certain product, right? And we would need to do a print, and we would have to put, you know, the description into multiple lines. And so we would use a /n to have the new line added. Okay. Do you have any question for me?
Dr. Wen,
Yes, India.
I have a question. How would you use the /t and the /r?
So the tab would, so let's say that I want Christine to be tabbed in a little bit more, like indented,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah. So if I wanted to move in a little bit when it display, then you would use that. Okay. So each of them has specific functionality. So for so as you can see here, it gives you the explanation that if you do the R is for the carriage return. So after that, it's just going to go to the next line for the carriage return.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So determine what is the purpose of that section of your code. What are you trying to achieve? Do you need to indent the names, right? Does it look better, right? Or do you just want to make it a new line, right? Do you want it to be for carriage return? Do you want for it to show with, you know, special symbol? Okay, so then that's what we would need to show. Okay. And you can practice, you can play with it a little bit. You can replace the /n with the other ones and see and save every time you edit your code. All right. So Python is very user-friendly. It's so easy, right? Nothing extra on the top for library. We just have to know that print is going to give us the output for text if you're using, string. So what happens if we, let's say, can I do something like this? What happens if I do a print 12? Will it run? Anyone know?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
Would it? I'm not sure.
So 12 is a number, right? And so far we've been using like strings. So let's look. So let's save this. We're going to call this a test file, okay?
Mhm.
So I'm going to go ahead and put it as test.py. Then if we press F5, it shows 12 because it passes as 12. So Not necessarily that you have to have a string in the parameter, right? If you simply just want to print out a number, you can just do that. You would say print that number. Now, this is different than print 12 because at this point, this is number, an integer, okay? And then in this one, the second one, this one becomes 12 is string. It becomes text, character text, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And so you can see it's still going to show 12, 12, but technically in the back, this is an integer for the first one inside that parameter. And the second one, it's a string inside that parameter. So if you're handling math, you want it to be integer, not string. Okay. But if you just wanted to show display of text, then you put it in the quotation.
Professor Nguyen,
Yeah.
when I noticed when you put file save, it went straight into a specific folder. How would I change because every time I save, it goes to the default folder, not to the one that I want it to go to. So
You using Windows 10?
yeah.
Huh. For the setting for your Windows? I have it on the flash drive.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Makes sense.
I create the folder on the flash drive. But maybe you should try setting up a folder outside of just desktop. You can make it on a desktop and see how it handles that.
Oh yeah, it gives me to like the folder it creates itself, but so I have to look for I'm saving it to my specific folder. I just want to every time I'm saving the file, it doesn't stay to the folder that I want it to stay. It goes back to the default.
After a few times, Chris, it's gonna Microsoft. It's gonna pick up. It's gonna realize where you want to save it. The first few times you still have to point to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also when you restart your system, because that goes to the temp memory and sometimes it forgets. And
Okay.
But
Makes
yeah,
sense.
it's user pattern. So you can see a little bit of difference, and we'll talk a little bit more about type later on, but now, kind of dive you into print a little bit and get your feet wet on how to make Python program, and so forth. Okay. Let's see. That's pretty much what I wanted you to do today. But I encourage you to practice, right? I know it's like under 2 hours. At the beginning, I cannot just give you a lot, because the chapter just basically we install Python packages, and then we understand what shell does. So just to capture what we talked about, in shell, you can only run like one line at a time. It's very limited. So you want to write your program in text editor in your IDE. Let's say if you use the IDE, then you want to use the text editor portion of the IDE, and you create your program. We learn about how to comment a program, and you would want to, by practice, you should comment throughout the program, not every line, but just to say the description of your program and certain section of your program. And then also we use our print function. We talked about using separator, escape character today, string versus integers. And then, we can have multiple print option, right? Print command. So we would have, these are my friends. And every time we talked about, every time that you update, you need to save. Did you have a question? Okay. Okay, so you update, you can save, and then you can rerun to test, and then you can also remove, right? Like if I wanted to get rid of this, what I can also do is I can comment this out, right? So what will happen, you saw what happened. So first we run it like this. So let's save that real quick. Okay. It shows these are my friends line. What if I just comment this out? I put the hashtag here, click file, click save, and I press F5 there, right? It basically ignores it, right? Now it's still there, but the interpreter just ignore it and says, oh, I'm not gonna worry about that line, okay? So you can see the difference. So that's a way that you can go through, and let's say that you wanted to test your program with a certain line of code or without. Instead of deleting it, we can just quickly comment it to kind of test. And if it works out like the way we want, then we can remove it. So we can comment out a line of code by just simply throw the hashtag in front of it, save, and then run and to test. And if we don't like the changes, we can always undo by removing the hashtag. Control save, Control S to save, and F5 to run. And then it's back. Okay? Pretty fun, simple. So I encourage you to keep on practicing. So for today's lab, make sure that you have your Python installed. If once you have your Python installed, you simply just create the output program using print function, starting with part D, which is your name in shell, and also create the program file. Then part E, which is your age with the comment. Part F, which is your family names, and we use multiple print with that, with comments of each of the role. And then part G, we use separator to separate out multiple strings in the parameter inside the parentheses. And then part H, to use escape character, right, for certain functionality like new line or tab or cache return. But we mainly, for our program, we mainly use /n to separate our friend's name. And then, so I need those screen captures on a document. You can save that document, and then once you're done, you just upload it to Canvas Lab 1. Okay. And please take the time to complete the discussion, right? This week, reply to your classmates before Sunday. And also to pre-read the next 2 chapters in the book. So we took care of 1 and 2 this week, and that's on your notes. But if you haven't gotten your book, you can take a look at the notes, right? And if you already got your book, you can go ahead and read the next 2 chapters so you can understand. And when we start doing stuff in class, it's going to help you, you know, kind of apply the whatever you're reading to the concept. So as I mentioned before, if you want to know what you're supposed to be doing, you can also go to the course plan weekly schedule and you can check it out. So next week, we're going to do 3 and 4. We're going to have an in-class assignment and a lab that next week. And then after that, we will have a homework assignment in week 3. Week 4, we'll have a quiz. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
For the screenshots, can we upload them onto that same lab document?
Yeah, that's what I want. So
Okay.
you would go to lab 1 and then click submit and then upload the screenshot document. Okay? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question?
Dr. Wen,
Yes.
I have a question. So in the summer, I learned a little bit about Python, but I was wondering if the return statement is the same as the carriage return.
No.
No? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll touch on the return statement. Like you can return value. So for example, I have a function that calculate the total, right? Let's say that I'm creating a program for a retail store, like a party supply store, to add up all the customer purchase.
Mhm.
And what I can do is I can have that sum and I can return that sum. So we can return a value, we can return something as part of that task before we continue to the next task. Okay, so after I have calculated the total, I can return that, and then next, what I will do is I will have another function to really bring the customer some, shipping information, right? And then, then that way they can choose the shipping, and then I can return the shipping cost, right? And then to be able to calculate, the final total, so that way they can have it on, the purchase order or the receipt.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's different than the carriage return. The carriage return is for text format purposes. So everything that you see there that we talked about today is like about how text is being displayed on screen. Like a new line, tab is for indentation, carriage return is when it brings it to the next line. Just like how you type up a Word document, right? All of the word that you see on the actual document when you type it up is what you see as text, right? So in the special characters that they're talking about today, that we talked about today, is really about text format.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any question? Other questions? We're good? Okay, it's lightweight today, so take the extra time that we have now, do the discussion. I'm not going to hold you on much more because I think I addressed everything, but I will post this video on the Zoom video on right above lab 1 in our module. And then I normally upload the stuff to YouTube so it can caption it for me. That's the fastest way I can have for turnaround. Then I will add the caption video on there in case you're interested in watching. And I have a YouTube channel which has various tutorial for different classes and lecture and such. But okay, I need you to type in your full name in the chat so I can get this attendance record thing taken care of. And that is it. We finished a little early. So have a wonderful afternoon. And I will see you here again on next Tuesday. I will be on for a little bit more in case you have questions. But if you're done with the lab, make sure you submit it and do the discussion and do the reading. Okay? All right.
Hey, did we have our names in the chat yesterday for attendance?
I gotcha. I pulled the report. I ended up pulling the Zoom report for participants at the end to verify because sometimes students forget to do that, but I gotcha.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon. Enjoy your afternoon.
All right, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.